So people say, oh, he's the smartest guy in the room. That's not smart for presidents isn't enough. What you really want is somebody wise enough to avoid the really big mistakes and wise enough to focus on what really matters.
Oh, boy. I guess he's admitting he's the smartest person in the room. I mean, that's a given. Newt Gingrich. Outsized ego or healthy confidence? Joining us now, my friend George Will, Pulitzer Prize-winning syndicated columnist. We love to see him on ABC News as a contributing analyst. George, well, this is fun. I know you have written about Mitt Romney as the kind of the ultimate manager, has a functionary approach to governance. But what do you make of this Newt Gingrich rise, given how many enemies he has in this town and how kind of a big government conservative he's been over the years?
Well, passing over the fact that the phrase big government conservative should by now be a kind of oxymoron.
True.
And passing over the fact that he's not just for big government, he's for every intellectual fad that comes along, blown about by gusts of wind from the futurism of the 90s to Lean Six Sigma today, whatever it is. But go back for a moment to that wonderful quote you just had from him about the smartest man in the room. You know, there's a movie made called The Smartest Guys in the Room. It's about the Enron debacle. Maybe there's a sequel coming for the United States debacle. But what Mr. Gingrich says, it's not enough that he, by inference, is the smartest guy in the room. He also has to be wise. Now, you can associate many things with Newt Gingrich, but wisdom isn't one of them. Surely, the Republican nominating electorate should understand the fact that people have patterns. Don't expect the patterns to go away. Expect the patterns to manifest themselves again. And if Newt Gingrich has any pattern at all, and he does, it is a pattern of getting himself into trouble because he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room.
Well, when Newt Gingrich comes on television and says, I will be the nominee, I am the conservative alternative to Romney, do you believe he believes that?
I do. Sure. But remember, this man is a combination of Churchill and de Gaulle to begin with. He's the embodiment of a nation in deep peril. The stage has to be lit by the fires of crisis and grandeur to suit Newt Gingrich. So I think he absolutely believes it.
So why is he up so far in the polls? Is it just people are not thrilled about Romney? He's not passionate enough?
Yes, it's partly his turn. It is these updrafts keep occurring and keep sweeping people up because there is this tremendous resistance to Mitt Romney in the Republican nominating electorate. Now, word of caution: we haven't heard from any voters yet. Soon we shall. And the Romney people have said, and some of these Romney people are quite experienced and seasoned and grown up. Some aren't, but some are. And they say, look, what will produce enthusiasm is winning. That's not that enthusiasm is going to produce winning, but winning is going to produce enthusiasm for Romney. And I suppose it could be the case. But so far, the political story of the year is how many directions a majority of Republicans are willing to go in order to avoid going in Romney's direction.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, it's sad, isn't it, really, at some point? I mean, at this perilous time for our country, at a point in time where conservatives really believe it's time to reestablish what conservatism means for a new generation after years of George Bush expanding government, taking us into, far-flung adventures around the world. And at the end, I mean, he's a nice guy, but wrecking the Republican Party and turning the White House over to the most radical person ever to probably step into the White House. And we're trying to, recover from that. And we find ourselves in this situation where it's kind of a moderate conservative and a big ideas kind of guy who grabs onto, all these, as you say, fads and different positions on different issues that don't necessarily really, make us feel like a conservative is even present in the room. How could that be?
Well, you raise a good question. Ask yourself this. Suppose Gingrich or Romney become president and gets reelected, especially at 8 years of this. What would the conservative movement be? How would it understand itself after 8 years? I think what would have gone away, perhaps forever, is the sense of limited government, 10th Amendment, Madisonian, government of limited delegated and enumerated powers, the sense that conservatism is indeed tied to limitations on federal authority and the police power wielded by Congress, that would all be gone, and it's hard to know what would be left.
What's the biggest policy mistake of Newt Gingrich while he was Speaker, and also the ideas he embraced after he was Speaker?
There are two
that
things.
Give you pause.
There are the ideas themselves, and then there are the motives for embracing them. The fact is, he did embrace the catastrophic, and we're still digging out from under the rubble, the catastrophic government commitment to ever cheaper mortgages. That government commitment to ever cheaper mortgages reflected a government decision that it just knew how many people ought to own homes in this country. Get the market out of the way, let the government come in and impose its sense of distributive justice. Newt Gingrich was a willing, rented spokesman for the housing crisis that we're now living through. So there's the ideas, and then there's the reason he gave for doing them. I mean, ethanol. He goes to Iowa and he says opponents of ethanol are, quote, big city folks, close quote, who don't like farmers. Please. Al Gore has repented his enthusiasm for ethanol. Life's full of close calls. Ethanol isn't one of them. But Newt Gingrich signs on as a spokesman for ethanol.
And he does it for what reason?
Money.
And he said that he's never embraced a position that he didn't philosophically agree with and to make money. He said that.
I'll take him at his word on that. I mean, if he says he agrees, he believes in ethanol, so much the worse. If he says he believes in what Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae were doing, so much the worse. Now, he says he was getting paid $30,000 a month for about an hour's worth of work as a historian. Figure that out. He says he told him it was a bubble, it was all insane. Journalists have yet to find anyone at Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac who remembers him doing that.
Well, when you look at the field, I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, and you and I have talked about this off air, George. But look, I know your wife does some work for Rick Perry. Full disclosure there. But Rick Perry, for a lot of people, represented the perfect candidate at the beginning, right? I mean, he ran this big state and he looks presidential and is a commanding presence, and yet he stumbled. He stumbled
badly. He stumbled badly in the place where you couldn't stumble in the 2011-12 cycle. That is in these debates that have become, in my judgment, absurdly important because they really test almost nothing germane to the performance of presidential duties. But there you are. Things are what they are, and the debates have become central, and Rick Perry has not done well.
Could there be a moment, even at this late date, where the heat that's being brought to bear on Newt Gingrich now with his past policies, his statements, his embrace of these big ideas, big government solutions and government programs, could there be room now for someone like a Perry to step in as the true conservative alternative to the more moderate Mitt Romney? I
think there could be, but right now the clock is the friend of Newt Gingrich, that we are hurtling toward the Christmas break when people will take a pause from thinking about politics. As soon as they get out from under New Year's, bang, here come the Iowa caucuses, quickly New Hampshire. So at this point, Newt Gingrich is, as I say, perhaps saved by the clock. I think it's not beyond imagining that Rick Perry could be revived. I think if you look at John Huntsman's record, what he's laid out, his proposals for taxes and the economy, his opposition to No Child Left Behind and other measures, you can make a case that he deserves a searching second look from conservatives. Huntsman's position on foreign policy is the most conservative. That is, it is the most modest in assessing the need and ability of the United States to control distant events.
The Laura Ingraham Show.